Okay, welcome to another Virtuosity video, and this time I'm going to show you how to create this aura that you can see in various animes. Here is quite easy to do things. I created also a small dust effect from a pre-made image, and you can also throw in some camera shake to this, which I don't have at the moment here. What we're gonna do first is go to layer, new solid, and let's create the aura layer. Right click, effect, noise and grain, and fractal noise, and crank the contrast up about 500, and you can play with the brightness in a bit. Let's drop down the scale to 7. It is well, it's a good number. Now what this effect does, it's just a fractal map with nothing special about it. If we start turning this evolution knob around, it starts living a bit. So what we're going to do is create a new effect and noise, blur and sharpen, and radial blur. With the radial blur, let's change the spin type to zoom, like so, and now you're basically starting to know what we're going to do here. Crank up the amount to like 60, 50 maybe, and press F4 to change this the icons down here, and let's change the transfer mode to add. So choose the radial blur starting point from between this guy's legs on the ground, and now it's halfway done already. Go back to the fractal noise and press Alt and press evolution with the mouse, and we have this script here that we can delete, and right here time times 1500. So basically it counts time, I don't know if it's seconds or what it is, but still time times 1500. So basically every time it goes 1 millisecond ahead, it counts the number by 500 and applies it to the evolution. So what happens is the numbers start, the fractal map starts living even a bit more. Then press T, choose opacity, click the stopwatch here, and find the part where you want this effect to be at its full power. And I think it's about this point, maybe 1 or 2 frames forward, and then drop back where you want this effect to start happening and turn this opacity down to 0. So it looks like this. Now next up is let's create the mask around the actor. Choose the mask tool, the pen tool here, and check that you have this aura chosen, and then start drawing however you want this effect to look like around the character. But basically what it is supposed to look like is just like a half circle around the actor, so that it looks like this. Now it actually looks quite good already. Maybe put a little feathering so that it doesn't collide with the ground too much, and maybe rising it up here a bit. At this point it doesn't really matter that much what it looks like, since we're going to do it in the next step. First, effect, color correction. I'll show it here. Color correction and tint. What this allows us to do is change some of the colors in the image to another color. So we're going to change white color to red, or depending on what kind of color you want this aura to be. Let's make it red, so it's an evil color. So this is what it is in its simplicity. Then we're just gonna go start doing more stuff on it. Depends on if you have the effect. If you don't, then you will have to find another way to do it, but choose effect, trap code, and shine. Crank the boost light up to about 100, and then we have to choose the source point for the shine effect. It makes it the same way as the radial blur, and then colorize, and let's change this mid-tone color either red or white or something in between, or even if you want to add some kind of small color adjustments into this image, for example a little bit of light orange, then it's okay. But it pretty much looks like this, and I want more of this light white part to show up, so I'm going to turn this mask a bit more bigger, and even maybe transform, drop it down a few, maybe 6, and now it's looking quite good. And now if we play it around, we can see it looks like this. And we're about halfway there. What I like to do usually is adjustment layer and then some kind of color effect on the actor. Choose the pen tool and start drawing a rough outline around the character, like so. It doesn't have to be exact, just so that we can create a rough outline around the character where the light might hit them. And then we have to press M to open the mask path, press the stopwatch to open the keyframe, and maybe the hardest part is just adjusting the keyframes so that they line up with the character in the start of the actions is moving a bit, and like so. It only took a few seconds of my time to do that. And then the other side, move the keyframes around like so. And now it's looking quite good, and the keyframes should follow this character around easily enough. Maybe adjust a bit around here. Alright, like so. Now when we go forward, I think the character stays quite still most of the time. Open the opacity controls, and let's make a keyframe so that it follows same values as the aura. Remove save, and now we can right click effect color correction, and depends what you like to use. I like to use curves, but you can also use levels or whatever you like. So what we can do here is turn some values a bit up so that we can get a bit of a reddish glow on the character, and maybe even do like this. And then press F to open the feathering options for the mask and feather it out so that it's just like a rough outglow, like so, that it doesn't really pop out too much, just so that it shows a bit of a color around the character. If it looks like it's too prominent, you can use the mask expansion to make it even smaller so that it just highlights a bit, or then you can use the mask expansion if you want to create an effect like this. But I like to keep it so that it's just a small glow around the character. You can do an effect like this, Ctrl Shift D to split it, and then alt click the opacity, and we can use a wiggle effect. And what this does is I type in 10.35. It basically changes the value 10 times the second and a maximum of 35 of the value. So what you can see here is it throws around the value a bit so that it looks like it's blinking a bit. So it works quite well with the aura that way. Alright, now we have this. And it's still missing something, right? New solid layer, I'll name it smoke and effect, noise and grain, fractal noise, and this is pretty much enough what we want. You can scale this a bit up since we might be using a small camera shake to the end product, and maybe a bit up like so, and a screen effect, and it looks pretty much like smoke. Evolution time times maybe 150, and let's see what it looks like. It might be even good as it is. So again, we need to create some kind of a some kind of a mask around here so that we can feather it out quite a bit. And at the same time as this aura effect here is happening, we want this smoke to start gathering around the ground and maybe rising up a bit like so. Depending on what you want to do, you can use a different transfer modes. And it's a bit too bright, lighting doesn't really show anything, but I like to use the screen for this one. And depending on how you're gonna adjust the values here, you can create even more of like ethereal looking shadow, and maybe also put the radial blur with the zoom in it. Not that much value, but like so. And if the effect is going to be just short so that it shows only a few seconds on the screen, usually this is pretty much enough. And for the smoke, you might want to also color correction and tint the same as we had for the previous effect, and maybe change it to something like light orange so that it reflects the ground color. And even depending on what kind of effect you want, and we might even want to do it like this. Let's see without the radial blur. Yep, and it's looking good. If you have some pre-made dust effects, you can also use them, and usually they're pretty good stuff. One last thing is what I like to do is choose all the layers and choose layer pre-compose into a new layer, and we have this the whole clip here. Right click, effect, expression controls, and slider control. We have a slider here which we can use. It doesn't do anything at the moment, as you can see. Then choose P for position, alt click to open the color controllers here, type in wiggle and parentheses, and let's put in 6, comma, and close it down. Then press 1 behind, and we can choose a number here by using the sweep tool here and dragging it up to the slider. So now what happens is it wiggles 6 times a second, and for the value that we have chosen in the slider. For example, we don't want the camera to wiggle before the effect happens. We want it to start around here in a rising manner, and when it's at full speed we want this to be maybe at least 15, I think. And if you want it to be more brutal, you can turn this first value even a bit more up. And as you can see, we have these black lines coming out here in the sides. We can use an effect called choose the layer and layer effect and stylize and motion tile. Here mirror the edges and output width. I like to put 125, so but even though it doesn't really matter. And what happens is it mirrors the image like so. In small values for this wiggle effect, it doesn't really see if you can see unless you start really looking into it. You can see it is copying the edge pixels, and here it pretty much is. Small things you can do is add motion blur so that when it starts shaking it looks like this. And even maybe small particles flying around and stuff like that. But here it is, the full complete product that we did. This was it for this time, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.